The Dogs of Angelville. Gerard hummed to himself, whilst attempting to drown out the noise to his right and rear. His sons occupied the back seat, with two suitcases stacked one on top of the other, right between them. They swatted and pinched each other as his wife Marion tried to stop them. Henry, Julian, please behave, she begged. The two boys ignored her, as they always did. Gerard shouldn't have made a habit of tuning them out. Ouch! Stop pinching me, Julian screeched. Stop it! Henry pinched him again. You started it. Marion nudged Gerard with her elbow. Do something. Gerard thought distraction was a good way to break up a fight. They were close enough to see Angelville, the town notorious for having the best guard dogs ever. Gerard honked the horn to let the human guards know that they were visiting. Look at that, boys, Gerard said. The dogs are out. Angelville was a fortified community with no wall or gate. A troop of large canines encircled the town, keeping in what belonged and keeping out what didn't. Gerard stopped at the end of the road, which was the only break in the circle. A human guard peeked inside the car. Name and business. Davenport, Gerard said, nephew of Reginald Kramer. The guard stuck his head all the way in the window, causing Gerard to lean away. Don't feed the dogs, he said. No matter how tempted you may be, make sure them kids understand. Don't ever feed the dogs. The guard backed away and Gerard drove on. Why can't we feed the dogs? Henry said. Yeah, why? Julian whined. We should do it anyway. Nothing will happen, I bet. Marion turned all the way around in her seat to look her rascals in the eyes. They'll kick us out for not listening. That's what'll happen. The dog's handlers do the feeding. You two need to start listening and doing as you're told. Julian looked out of his window and stared down a dog as they passed by. What kind of dogs are these? Henry said. They look like wolves. Gerard mumbled under his breath. The kind that eat naughty children? Marion snickered and turned back around in her seat. Gerard made several turns and parked in front of a tiny white house. We're only here for the weekend, Marion said. Try not to break anything. The inside of the house was clean and spacious. It was the perfect size for a couple and no more than two children. Even one more would have been one too many. Gerard showed Henry and Julian to their room. There's three rooms. Why do we have to share? Julian demanded. I want my own room. Gerard ignored him and rejoined his wife in the kitchen. Is that how you remember? She said. Gerard opened a drawer to the left of the sink. He took out an old leather-bound notebook and gave it to Marion. Hurry up and read it, he whispered. Don't tell them anything. Marion read as much as she could, paying close attention to everything marked with red asterisks. She gave the notebook back to Gerard when they heard a loud crash and Julian screaming. I got it, Gerard said. There is a wine cellar over there, green door. Gerard took his time getting to the boys' room. He tried to look concerned, but had stopped caring if they maimed each other several years ago. The little bookcase in our room was turned over, with Julian pinned underneath it. Gerard lifted the shelf so his youngest could get up. Henry was looking out of the window. A lady wearing an apron went from one dog to the next with a notepad and pen. She's talking to the dogs, Henry said. Are these people crazy? Julian slapped Henry across the back of the head. Let's go ask her. Henry chased Julian out of the house. Gerard didn't yell after them. He was relieved to have them out of the way for a moment. He returned to the kitchen to find that Marion had already poured 2 glasses of champagne. Is it true? She said. What's in the notebook? It is, Gerard said and drank his whole glass. When dinner time came around, Gerard had a hot pot roast delivered to the front door. They ate in silence and fridged the leftovers. The clock hit 8 and the first chorus began. The Angelville dogs howled in unison 4 times. The second chorus came at 9. As one voice, the dogs howled together 3 times. Gerard and Marion locked themselves in the extra bedroom that Reginald had used as an office. They left Henry and Julian to fight over the radio. Henry retrieved a piece of their dinner roast from the pot and headed to the door. Julian remained seated on the floor, having won the radio battle. Where are you going? Julian said. It's dark outside. Henry showed the meat in his hand, giving the white dog a treat. Julian got the last bit of beef left and ran after his brother. There were no people out. The gap in the circle was closed. Half the dogs were missing, which Julian noticed. There were more of them, he said. Where's the white one? Henry and Julian approached the dog with a black and blue coat. Neither of them showed a sign of fear. Henry held his meat out to the dog. Here you go. Julian tossed his to one of solid brown. Neither dog accepted the offerings. The black and blue stood up on her hind legs and let out the loudest, most ear-piercing howl either boy had ever heard. They covered their ears and ran. The dogs ran after them, snarling and teeth gnashing. The solid brown caught Julian by the trousers and flung him to the ground. Henry was tackled by the black and blue. Dad, Henry screamed. Daddy, help! The dogs gathered round their catch. You don't listen well, do you? The black and blue growled in a very human voice. I know you were told not to feed us. How dare you offer us scraps? I should tear your face off. The solid brown nipped Julian's ears. What do you take us for, street mutts with fleas and mange? The nerve of you. The missing dogs returned and joined their comrades. Henry tried to sit up, but the white dog, the one he went out for, put her paw on his chest. He struggled to breathe under her weight. I really hate bratty kids. You two need discipline, and you'll get it. The white dog stood up on her hind legs, then in one fluid motion transformed into a leggy woman with white hair. You see that new moon, she said? That's the best moon. The white dog pulled Henry up by his hair and ripped his shirt off. She punched a hole through his chest and ripped his heart out. Julian tried to scream for help, but the solid brown had his face pinned to the ground. The white dog took a bite of Henry's still beating heart and put it back. The hole closed, leaving no scar. Your turn, the white dog said to Julian. She did the same to him, and they waited. The clock hit 10 and the Angelville dogs howled as one, twice. Julian and Henry sat on the ground, shaking uncontrollably. Then the itching started. They scratched and scratched, as if they had rolled in a bed of poison ivy. 11 o'clock and only one howl. Julian felt the side of his head for ears. They weren't there. Henry realized that he no longer had fingers. Julian gave in to their fate. He accepted what was happening and laid in the dirt until it was done. Henry tried to stand, but couldn't. His body would no longer allow him to walk on two legs. Dad, he screamed. Mommy, help me. That's what he thought he said. It all came out as barks and whining. The dogs of Angelville laughed. 12 o'clock and each dog, one after another, took on human form. They stood around two scraggly puppies that were Henry and Julian Davenport. The white dog picked them up by the scruff and went over to the little house that Gerard had inherited. She knocked on the door with her foot. Gerard opened the door and said nothing. Look what I made, the white dog said. You want them back? Marion came to the door as well. She understood what had happened right away, even after learning the truth about Angelville hours earlier. You want them back? The white dog repeated. Gerard shook his head. No. The puppies whined. The white dog shook them both until they stopped. They have to stay, Gerard said. He closed the door and backed away from it. He and Marion didn't sleep that night. Their weekend was cut short as they left the next morning. What will we tell people, Marion said, if they ask where the boys are? Gerard stopped humming to himself. I don't know. Maybe I'll say they're staying with my Uncle Reginald. Did you enjoy the story? The Dogs of Angelville? I hope so.